unfortunately, I'm going to tell you things that are that indicate that the CAW and the CEP merger process exemplifies it in the most hideous way possible. And I'll also get into a bit the political direction, which is I have brought something with me, which I think you'll find very interesting. Okay, so at the end of August here in Toronto, a new union with members, a membership of over 300,000 will be founded. It will merge what are currently the Canadian Auto Workers and the Communication, Energy, and Paper Workers into what will be the largest private sector union in this country. Ostensibly, this new union will be more powerful and influential than either of the two unions on their own. Certainly will have more members and more resources at its disposal, but that is only synonymous with having potentially greater power and influence. The merger in no way is, in fact, a guarantee that these things will be realized. Size is certainly not synonymous with effectiveness. In fact, increasingly, there are compelling reasons to view this merger with considerable apprehension, as I increasingly do. This is because the more one sees of this merger and the process giving rise to it, the more cause for concern one finds. Nowhere is this more evident than in the merger process. A few days ago, CAW National President Ken Lewenza was interviewed by the Windsor Star, and you can actually see this interview on the Windsor Star website. It's only a couple minutes long. He was interviewed about the coming merger, and at the conclusion of the interview, he had the audacity to claim the merger process could not be more open and transparent than it is. If he actually believes this, and I can't realistically believe that he does, if he actually believes this, then he has a very different concept of openness and transparency than I do. Because if you talk to CAW rank and file, they have next to no idea what is going on, and even local CAW leadership have largely been left in the dark. Many will readily acknowledge this, and I'm talking about many local CAW leaders. The merger process has in fact been from the very from the beginning been driven in a very top-down manner and shaped from behind closed doors. And it sounds a lot like what we just heard about the NDP, quite frankly. No one even knows who the people are on the committees which have been assembling the terms of the new merger of the two unions. Certainly the rank and file have not in any way shaped the process, nor have local union leaders in any meaningful way. The bureaucracies of the two unions have exclusively shaped this process and only now are engaging in a very limited, carefully managed, are engaging us in a very limited, carefully managed way, meaning local union leaders and members, by a series of information meetings about the merger where the rank and file must RSVP their local union in order to attend. Think about that. In effect, the members are being told they can't just show up at a meeting of their own union to learn about the new union. They're about to become members of and pay union dues to and be profoundly affected by. Consider the following. There are 14 information meetings about the merger being scheduled to take place across Canada. Half are in Ontario. Only one meeting each will be held in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick. Now, how's that for accessibility? Think about this. If you're a CEP member in Alberta, you have to travel to Edmonton if you want to go to a meeting to find out about the merger. They're not exactly facilitating your participation. And what's even worse, there will be no meetings in Prince Edward Island or Newfoundland. So I guess all those fishery workers that are in the CAW and Newfoundland, I guess they're just out of luck. What kind of openness and transparency is that? But here's the clincher. It is not being made possible for members or local union leaders to send resolutions to the founding convention. You heard me.
Wow.
Think about it. What this effectively means is that the union bureaucracy of these two merged unions is going to present a complete merger package to the delegates at the founding convention, and this will be done in a way that amounts to being told to take it or leave it, the whole package. Stated otherwise, we the delegates, and I'm going to be one, chosen by the our respective memberships, will have a clear choice between rubber stamping the entire merger package presented to us as a fait accompli, or vote against it and effectively scuttle the merger. But that is not the worst of it. And I know what I told you is pretty bad, but it's not the worst of it. When the critical vote comes, I know from brutal experience, past experience, there will be a real intimidation factor at work. And I've encountered this personally on a number of occasions, very certainly aware of it. Take it to the bank that Ken Luenza will declare there will be a standing vote on this when where you vote by standing up or by not standing up, not by raising your hand. And that way, anyone who wants to vote against what is being presented will find themselves having to do so with the eyes of everyone in the hall glaring at them, including the leadership. Is that a democratic organization? I stress these things because the process reveals that there will be a real absence of democracy in the new union, which will perpetuate the absence of democracy, which has been evident at the national level of the CAW and very characteristic of it since its inception. And this has been exemplified by one simple statistic. At CAW National Council meetings, not one recommendation of the national president has ever been voted down since 1992. Can you believe that? So the delegates have basically rubber stamped everything that's come their way, whether it be policies that amount to support for concessions, whether it be the about face and embrace of strategic voting, whatever. They rubber stamped everything. In line with all this, one other thing is very noteworthy. Back in 1985, I was active in the union, and at that time I didn't hold a leadership position though. The then Canadian region of the United Auto Workers broke from the United Auto Workers to form the CAW. And at that time, large general membership meetings were held where the union's rank and file were able to go to microphones, express without facing intimidation their views, and actually debated the issue of forming a new union, and then voted on it. And the vote was taken by a show of hands, not by having to stand up in front of everybody and express your opposition, and be on the receiving end of all the consternation from those with power in the union as a result. Nothing comparable is happening this time. What this reveals is a considerable regression in terms of democracy within the union. What this shows is that rather than moving towards a stronger, more influential, and more democratic organization, what is emerging is one big, unaccountable, self-perpetuating and privileged bureaucracy, which the rank and file is going to have no control over. Hence my dark assessment of this merger and how it is developing. These things duly noted, I do not want to come across as a prophet of doom. In spite of all this, and amidst this bleak picture, there are nonetheless possibilities. There is some reason for hope. That hope lies in the fact that this union is being arbitrarily, very arbitrarily, cobbled together by the bureaucracies of the two existing organizations with huge unresolved issues which can be strategically addressed once the thing is in place. Foremost among these is the political question, which I addressed at length in an article which many of you have read. They have no answer for the resolution of this question, and it is sure to spark intense debate at some point, which I am hoping will lead to what the late Joe Flexer used to refer to as an outbreak of democracy. The task then will be to pour gasoline on the fire and break things wide open, to include in particular, and this is where we get to the topic of this panel, challenging the long-standing embrace of contract concessions by both organizations and the tepid and selective support given to social movements resisting the austerity agenda. And if these things can be done, and only then will this merger constitute an historic step forward for the labor movement in this country. It is indeed, it is, in my view, it is imperative that they are done. And I'd like to, without getting into a long history about the embrace of concessions, I can do that during the question period. I brought something along with me that I thought you'd find very interesting. And that's on the merger process and the political question of the political direction of the new union. Last December, and at the risk of patting myself on the back, it seems to be I'm the only one who actually dares to ask these questions. I posed a question to Ken Lowenz at a CAW council meeting, and I'll read you the exact transcript of what follows, and it gives you an idea, it gives you a sense of magnitude of the unresolved issues that are here that really present the potential for all kinds of turbulence and big political fights within the new organization. So I went to the mic and I said, I support the recommendation. The recommendation was to have the merger, and I certainly support the merger, but there is a question I'd like to ask. I'd like some clarification in terms of the process. What I'm particularly interested in and concerned about is what will the process be? What opportunities will there be for input in terms of defining the political direction of the new union, and particularly what, if any, relationship the new union will have with the NDP? And here's Lowenz's answer. And I was the only person that spoke on this. It speaks volumes in itself. This is Lowenz speaking. I'll just speak on that issue. As I said, the majority of the issues we have in common with CEP, most of you know, they are indoctrinated into the New Democratic Party. We in our union had a task force. We went from community to community to community, and our membership said, quote, you've got to be involved in political issues, but you can't be a political party functioning and being owned and operated by any political party, including the New Democratic Party, unquote. Overwhelmingly, our members said they wanted us involved in political issues. Overwhelmingly, they wanted us to defend their interests. Overwhelmingly, they didn't want us to concentrate all of our marbles into one political party. The only thing I can say to Bruce and the leadership in this room, when we get to the Constitutional Convention, we won't have a definition on that particular issue. So here he's admitting that it's completely unresolved. We're going to go out to our members again. We're going to go out to the communities again. We're going to educate our members on what the alternatives are, and we're going to follow the direction of our membership as we have done in the CAW for the last 10 to 15 years. It's a pretty preposterous claim, because if you follow the gyrations in terms of the flip-flops and about faces in the CAW's political direction, it had more to do with whatever the preferences on any particular day were of Buzz Hargrove than it had to do with the membership. And he goes on to say, I would be the first one that would love to stand up and say, I belong to, quote, I belong to the social democratic movement, and I'm proud of my social democratic movement. At the end of the day, we have done better by strategically going out and talking about issues, because sometimes political parties disappoint us, and when political parties disappoint us, when you're connected to them, then that disappointment trickles down to our members. I am pissed. Nobody could ever be a Tory. Nobody could ever be a Liberal. And yet the same guy, several weeks later, attended the Ontario Liberal Party convention as a delegate supporting Sandra Pupatello.
Shame.
So I mean, the dishonesty can be breathtaking at times inside of the CAW, which, you know, I don't want to go off on a tangent here.
I'll go ahead.
But the exasperation I experience with the way that people don't see through this organization just drives me crazy. Anyway, he said nobody can ever be a liberal. The guy who stood there with Sandra Pupatello. Not everybody has to be a New Democrat, but CEP and CAW can be social democrats defending the interests of our members and nation. Now, how you can be a social democrat and support Sandra Pupatello, I don't know. Maybe you can explain how that's somehow possible. I don't believe that will be resolved at the Constitutional Convention, but we will do what we did in the CAW. We'll engage our membership, we'll engage our leadership, and we'll come out there with a unified voice on how we defend our members moving forward. So there's no answer to the question.
1 minute.
Just like there's no answer to the question of whether this merger is in any way going to address the whole phenomenon of concessions and the constant retreat in the collective bargaining process. Because frankly, both unions are horribly guilty of this, and both unions won't even question the trajectory of the dynamic at work in the collective bargaining process, where we're going backward and backward, which in the auto industry has been centered around the fact that the corporations have been holding the union hostage over investment decisions in order to extract more and more and more concessions, and basically turn the whole negotiating process on its head, make it their negotiations for what we're prepared to give up in order to get investment, rather than our negotiations for what we want to gain. And that's been the central dynamic of the last 20 years in the auto industry. That isn't even up for debate. So that brings me back to my immediate initial point, which is that we've got to have a democratic breakthrough here in the face of this leviathan that's in front of us, in order to even be able to attack the whole direction of embracing concessions and giving in to the austerity agenda.